In a time when more and more organizations are experiencing this level of disengagement, the best leaders, teams, and organizations are doubling down in their commitment to engaging with their people to create the compelling culture that people want to be a part of. They're taking time to figure out, well, what does it truly mean to engage, and what kind of culture can we create and help people connect to us, connect to each other, and connect to the goals of the organization. It turns out employee engagement is a two-way street. So on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about why employee engagement matters, what the best leaders and organizations are doing to proactively create engaged cultures, and ultimately reminding ourselves of what human beings want in an employer. So stay tuned and I'll explain more. Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to the Thermostat podcast. Wherever you are and however you're coming to the podcast today, welcome in. So glad you are here. We're in season 10, over 30 episodes or something like that now. So glad you are here. So glad this continues to grow and spread in exciting ways. My commitment to you, the listener, every time I go to record one of these is I want the topics that we're talking about to help you step back in your own life and your own work, to hopefully breathe a little oxygen into you and help you think about that temperature that you're aiming to set in your life and your work. I know we all need it. I know the best leaders, teams, and organizations on the planet. This is just an ethic of what they do. And so I'm so glad that you're here and taking some time to step back and listen to what we're going to chat about today. Before I dive into today's episode, if you'll do me the quick favor, if you will rate the podcast, of course, 5 stars on whatever platform you're on, if you'll leave an authentic review in your own words, that really helps the algorithms, them see real people, not bots, but real people saying, hey, this resonated with me. This is what connected with me. And then also, every time you, obviously, outside of rating and reviewing and subscribing and all those things that please do, every time you share it with a friend, a team, a colleague, post it on social media, an episode or something, a topic that really resonated with you, that helps amplify the message further and helps reach more people. And that's ultimately what the point of this is to make a wider impact with these positive messages in the world today. So thanks for everybody that takes a moment to help amplify these messages. Very much appreciate that. We are now nearly 40 years into studying and measuring what has been called employee engagement, defined as the emotional commitment and connection that employees have to their organization and its goals. So employee engagement, this concept, this idea, this definition, the first thing I like to point out about it is, employee engagement doesn't mean it is that emotional commitment and the connection that employees feel to their organization and goals, but it doesn't mean that everything is puppy dogs and ice cream. An engaged employee, it doesn't mean that things are perfect. It doesn't mean that there aren't challenges or obstacles, but it does mean that more days than not, the employee comes to work and feels connected to the organization, connected to the teammates, and connected and wanting to help contribute to those goals and the mission of the organization, more days than not. We all have our bad days, of course. So just recently, according to Gallup, the U.S. employee engagement has now hit a 10-year low with only 31% of employees measuring by their metrics as engaged. 17% of employees measured as actively disengaged. So further evidence of what we are referring to that's widening the gap of employees that are feeling detached from their organization and its goals. As you've heard me talk about in other pod episodes, we are in a very low trusting environment, and the level of engagement with people is just very low. Again, a 10-year low, and 31% measuring as only 31% as engaged and 17% as actively disengaged. So in a time when more and more organizations are experiencing this level of disengagement, the best leaders, teams, and organizations are doubling down in their commitment to engaging with their people to create the compelling culture that people want to be a part of. They're taking time to figure out, well, what does it truly mean to engage? And what kind of culture can we create and help people connect to us, connect to each other, and connect to the goals of the organization? It turns out employee engagement is a two-way street. So on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about why employee engagement matters, what the best leaders and organizations are doing to proactively create engaged cultures, and ultimately reminding ourselves of what human beings want in an employer. So stay tuned, and I'll explain more. But before we dive into that, let's take a quick break. We'll pause, and we'll be right back. Many teams and organizations right now are realizing that they need to do both. They need to engage the minds and hearts of their people in person, where everyone in the room can experience the energy of congregating together and find clarity for the road ahead. And they also need to continue to find ways to engage the minds and hearts of their people virtually with those who are working remotely or at a distance. So if you are in the process of planning your next team meeting, company all-hands event, conference, or culture summit, and are looking for support with a powerful keynote speech, facilitated team conversations that are the currency for change, or deeper development on leadership mindset and an intentional strategy for the culture you're trying to create, I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. So as we start this conversation around employee engagement, I think perhaps the best place to start is to step back and remind ourselves of what human beings actually want. What do human beings want, and what are they needing out of their organization? And these aren't just my thoughts, but this comes from research and study and a whole lot of measurement studies and research that point to this, that this is what human beings are saying they want and what they need in an organization. We know this, and by the way, not only do we need research and studies to back this up, but we know this intuitively. We all as humans, we know this, that people need to feel like they matter and have purpose. We know that. I don't need a study to tell me that, but the studies do back that up, that people want to feel like they matter and like they have a purpose. Human beings want to have clarity on expectations. When things start to feel cloudy, people then don't feel they're less likely to engage. So people want to have clarity on expectations. Human beings want to feel like they contribute. So not only do they matter, and is there a purpose to why they show up to work, but they want to feel like their contributions also matter, that they have a contribution to make. They want to feel valued as an individual person, not just as a statistic or as, another part of the organization. They want to feel like they're seen and valued as an individual person. We know that human beings want to feel connected to the culture, and they want to find joy. We know that not every day in our jobs and work is quote unquote fun. There's work to be done. Of course, we've got to roll up our sleeves and concentrate and focus and all the stuff. Of course, it's not meant to be. But if there isn't an element of feeling connected to the culture and finding joy in the pursuit and the journey of the work, people start to become disengaged. And as we know, only 20% of people right now feel connected to the culture, and yet 90% of them say they want to feel connected to their organizational culture. And the last thing we know about human beings and their wants and needs is they want to believe in the future being created. They want to, whatever organization they work for, whatever team they're a part of, they want to believe that the future that they're shooting towards, that things are getting better and that they believe in where it is that the team or the organization is trying to go. So we know that this is what human beings want and need in an organization, and people are looking for those traits in their employer. They may be skeptical if that really exists out there, yet the very best places have employees report that, the very best places report that their employees do feel this way, that they feel all those things. They feel like they matter. They feel like they have clarity of expectations. They feel like they contribute. They feel like they are valued as an individual person. They feel connected to the culture and find elements of joy in their work. And they believe in the future that's being created. So does that mean that it's perfect and that, again, there's no perfect team or organization on the planet? But there are the best places out there that report that their employees do find these things and feel this way. Secondly, so if we start, again, firstly, with what do we know human beings want and need in an organization? Secondly, we should also step back and consider why employee engagement matters. Well, here are some reminders about that. Again, if you needed some reminders. We know, again, from research and study, that employee engagement predicts outcomes like quality of work, safety, profitability, etc. So the level of engagement of an employee also predicts the quality of their work and the number of safety incidents and profitability and other things like that. So there's an actual, quote unquote, return on investment for having higher engagement with your employees. We know right now that only 39% of employees feel strongly that someone cares about them. That comes from another Gallup study, that right now only 39% of employees actually feel like someone cares about them as an individual person. We also know from studies and research from Gallup and others that disengagement costs the global economy about $322 billion annually due to turnover in organizations and lost productivity. And the flip side of that, again, when an organization has higher levels of engagement with their employees and when an individual employee themselves feels valued and engaged, performance actually increases by around 22%, depending on the study you look at, but about 22% higher performance metrics, which leads to higher retention of the very best talent in your organization, which leads to lower turnover and higher levels of job satisfaction. So if you need an ROI as to why employee engagement matters beyond just it matters for the individual human, that's what it means for the organization. Thirdly, let's look at what is the research telling us about areas where organizations can make improvements to better engage with their people. So if we know that these things matter to the humans involved, and we know that there's a cost and to disengagement or a benefit in engaging our people, then let's look at what are some of the best places doing to engage and better engage with their people. So back to some of those things that we know people want around clarity of expectations. Just 46% of employees right now report that they know exactly what is expected of them. So if only 46% of your employees report that they know exactly what is expected of them, then there's a correlation between that and them feeling disengaged because we know people crave clarity. So we'll talk in a second of how do we begin to help bring some clarity to those expectations. We know that people, again, they want to feel like there's a caring for people. Well, currently, only 39% of employees say they feel strongly that someone cares about them at work. It's a basic human need. People want to know and feel that people actually care about them as a human being. So that correlates to levels of disengagement, or the organizations that are showing that care for their people, the level of engagement goes up. And I'll talk about that in a second. And then we know that we need to be encouraging development. Only 30% right now strongly agree that someone at work encourages their development. And yet we also know people want people supporting their growth. So finally, we can get to the ultimate point of this episode of the podcast is that employee engagement is a two-way street. The very best leaders and organizations know that a foundational element to their role as an employer is to create a culture that engages with its people. It isn't an extra thing, an add-on only when it's convenient. It is a non-negotiable human need. If you want to create an organization where human beings are more engaged, then you probably need to begin to think this way. If you have to have a strategy to engage with your people, you have to have one. If you don't have one and you're just sitting back and putting your fingers, crossed and hoping that people engage, then that is not aligned with the idea that that's part of our role as an organization is to engage with our people. So you have to have a strategy to engage with your people. The culture has to be an everyday strategy and have intentional moments throughout the year to engage with your people in meaningful ways and help everyone within the organization develop. And the style and spirit with which you engage with people, the opportunity is to create a two-way street, to help people see that we all own the culture. We all play a role in creating that future. We all have to choose to engage with each other. It's not only on the employer, but it is on the employer first and then the employee second. But it's a two-way street to say we are going to choose to engage. That's a non-negotiable of being a part of this team and this culture and this organization. We're going to engage together and we're going to find that meaning. Find that contribution, make sure there is clarity of expectations, and also make sure that we are clear on what is that future culture that we're trying to create together. Lastly, and quickly, I'll leave you with these basic and foundational, but certainly not the only ones, or the only ways, but the best organizations create these two-way streets that I'm talking about to engage their culture. So here are some basic, these aren't the only things, but here's some basic and foundational things that are happening when in these more highly engaged cultures where they are really thoughtful and intentional about creating these two-way streets. So I'll talk about a few elements. One, hiring. It starts from the beginning of the employee experience. It's not a one-way interview. It's a two-way interview. Both are engaged and understand the expectation is a partnership rather than just a transaction. I'm paying you to do a job, and so that's this one-way thing. No, it's a two-way partnership where both of us understand the expectation and the partnership of what we're entering in together. Onboarding. The process to onboard isn't just an orientation about what the employee is supposed to do. It's a 365-day at minimum and beyond commitment to helping onboard new employees culturally and to have dialogue and development of what does it mean to engage at this organization and what does it mean to be an ambassador for the culture that we're trying to create and what role do we all play in creating it. Coaching and development. People want to know, people care about them and their development. We know this from research. We know that as human beings. Employees just want to know that they're seen, valued, and that somebody wants to help them develop. Younger generations, that's as important to them as ever right now. The best places are investing in development programs and also becoming more strategic about their feedback, their coaching throughout the year with their employees. Long gone is the one-year annual review. There's a more consistent effort and intentional development, coaching, and feedback that happens. In many of the organizations that I support, we're identifying emerging leaders and helping to identify them and invest in their development in alignment with that culture that we're trying to create. Clarity of roles and goals. Again, back to the fact that we know the low number of people that feel like the expectations are clear, so clarity is king. When people feel things are cloudy, they disengage. The best places are always seeking clarity and communicating directly about expectations, and again, creating a two-way street of what's expected of the employee, what's expected of the supervisor, how are we in this together for this partnership that we're creating. And lastly, I'll just point out ongoing culture and performance assessments. There is language and clarity on the future culture that they're trying to create. The best places they can describe, they can articulate the future culture they're trying to create. And the teams and organization are continuously finding ways to engage their people in that culture. And along the way, they are assessing their performance and they're listening to their employees, creating that two-way street to keep looking at, are we setting that temperature that we say we want in this organization? And everyone has a piece of that ownership. Employee engagement is a two-way street. So, as always, let me leave you with some questions to ponder for today's episode. What are you doing to intentionally engage with your people? What are you doing to intentionally engage with your people? Is the desired future culture clear to everyone throughout your organization? And what are you doing next to engage with them and invest in the development of that future culture that you envision? The best places, culture is a non-negotiable strategy. It's foundational to everything they do, and engaging with each other is just a part of the deal. It's a two-way street. As always, I hope you found today's episode. I hope it got you thinking in some ways. I hope it breathed some good oxygen into you, got you thinking about this. If you have any thoughts, feedback, or ideas, please reach out to us. You can reach out through the jasonvbarger.com website, jasonvbarger.com, or you can email us directly, info@jasonvbarger.com, and we'll certainly engage with you. If we can be of assistance to the development of your employees, to engaging with them, development, culture, clarity around mission, vision, values, any of that stuff, you can reach out and we can see if it's a good match to help support you in those efforts. Again, thanks to everybody who subscribes, rates, reviews, shares the episodes, and helps amplify these messages further out into the world. I'm truly grateful for everybody that does that. And as always, I'll remind us lastly to step back, remember, be a thermostat, and breathe good oxygen. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.